Marriage and Family, the Addiction Studies. This is the Ready to Test Manual, Section 1, Chapter 1, page 3. In this chapter, it is filled with various statistics. I'm going to point out the ones for you. You can read all of them, but I'm going to point out the ones that I think are more likely to be identified on the test. So, Chapter 1 says an overview of addiction and its treatment. Almost everyone has experience with addictive psychoactive substances. Alcohol is legal. Prescription pills are given to you by your doctor, whether they're used, overused, misused, abused. Marijuana is common. In quite a few states are looking at decriminalization, which is not the same thing as legalization, and probably will occur at some point in most places. Whether this is what you think should or should not be, it probably is what is going to be. Most people consume, among these three types, a lot of people, and this is particularly speaking of alcohol, consume alcohol occasionally without adverse effects, despite the fact that they know it can be addictive for those who reach a certain level of use. In addition to alcohol, mood-altering drugs include illegal and legal substances that are highly addictive, resulting in impaired physical, social, psychological functioning. If you look at prescription pills, as far as impairment, driving under the influence, probably one of the most abused substances out there. And I'm only going to go over the statistics I think are important for the test. The National Survey of Drug Use and Health. This one is definitely on the test, and the reason you know it's going to be on the test is for the first several chapters of the book. They repeat this same statistic over and over and over. Slightly more than half of Americans aged 12 or older reported as current drinkers of alcohol, 51.9%, 130.6 million people. You'll see it on the test as half of Americans aged 12 and older. You'll see it as approximately 52% of the people. You'll see it as approximately 131 million people. Whatever it is, it is. The second statistic, they will say that about approximately 22 million Americans aged 12 or older are current within the last month. Illicit, meaning illegal, excluding alcohol. On this test, if you don't understand alcohol and other drugs, that alcohol is a drug, then you will have problems and they will mark your question wrong. It represents 8.7% of the population, 12 and older. Illicit drugs are marijuana, cocaine, or crack, heroin, hallucinogens, inhalants, and prescription medication. About 22.5 million people, approximately 10% of the population, age 12 and older, fit the indicators, the criteria, which would then be DSM-5. DSM-4 understood substance use to be misuse. Went out to a party, I drank too much, I drank some and smoked some pot too. By the time I drove home, I was slightly or partially impaired, and had I gotten stopped, I probably would have gotten a ticket. Whether you got stopped or not, that was a misuse. I was impaired. I used more than I was supposed to use. You cannot have safe limits for illegal drugs according to these standards, simply because they're illegal. You can't have an addiction program that says there's a safe use of illegal drugs.
So that 10% of the population, do they fit the criteria for misuse or moderate?
Misuse is mild.
Mild, okay.
If you go to DSM-5, you have substance use disorder, mild, moderate, severe.
Okay.
If you have DSM-4, depending, and I don't know which test you'll get, which makes it kind of unfair when you're trying to teach it for someone who's trying to test. DSM-4 says misuse.
It's use, misuse, abuse.
Use, misuse, abuse, dependency, and addiction.
Okay.
Okay. DSM-5 says use, just plain use.
Yeah.
Mild, moderate, severe.
Okay, that's
But
what I
then
was.
they kind of
that's what I
move
was
past severe to go to chronic, which is the addicted part, the addicted dependent part.
Okay.
Okay? Specific illicit drugs, the highest levels, it's going to be marijuana. Okay? There's going to be one little question there that says about 70 million people of America, 12 and older, are tobacco. If they ask you for the most frequently used or misused or addictive drug or whatever, it's going to be tobacco. Because, you know, you're not going to go far wrong looking at tobacco, alcohol, and marijuana. Because this is where the test is going to be.
They don't go with nicotine, they go with tobacco.
They probably will list it as tobacco. Okay, 23.5 million people ages 12 and older need treatment. So that's about 10% of people 12 and older. Of those 2.6 million, 1% of those who needed treatment went to a facility. And all they're trying to do is set up a rationale for this is a real problem. You know? Another 8.3%, 21 million people needed treatment, but guess what? They didn't go for all kinds of reasons. Lack of insurance, lack of compliance, lack of family support, whatever the reason may be. The majority of people who use drugs or alcohol from time to time will not need treatment. This next paragraph on page 5 is on the test. Treatment is for those who cannot or will not stop their use without a special program. They are physically or psychologically dependent. They're chronic, they're severe, they're addicted, regardless of which term they use. Coming down to the last paragraph of page 5. Treatment is an essential cost-effective factor in stemming the tide of substance abuse. It's vital for those who have progressed the stage of dependency or addiction. And there are 5 critical elements necessary for a comprehensive treatment approach. Looking on page 6, the process of addiction. Abstinence from alcohol and other drugs, thank you, is typical for people most of the time. Occasional use of psychoactive substances may start because of curiosity or peer influence. It may be an experimental use during the adolescent years, typically between 12 and 15 years. It's most likely starting with tobacco, alcohol, marijuana. There's a theme here, there's a pattern going on here, guys. Most of the time in the initial period it's intermittent, and people come back to it after periods of complete abstinence, after having no adverse consequences. So they give you this stage. While I'm giving you this stage, please overlay what you know about DSM-5 so that you can distinguish between the two. Stage 1, experimental social use. This would kind of be misuse in DSM-5, or it would be mild. Frequency of use, occasionally, maybe a few times a month, with your friends. To satisfy, and these little reasons for use are on the test: to satisfy curiosity, to peer pressure, for social acceptance, to defy their parents, rebellion, thrill-seeking, to be grown up, to relieve boredom, to have pleasure, to diminish social anxiety or inhibitions. The effects: fun, excitement, thrill, belonging, and control. The behavioral indicators: not much, very little. Maybe a hangover, maybe whatever. The metabolic effects of alcohol and other drugs alter the individual's chemistry because psychoactive drugs mimic, displace, this little sentence right here is on the test, mimic, displace, block, and deplete specific chemical messengers between nerve cells in the brain.
Mimic, displace, block, and deplete.
Mimic, displace, block, or deplete. It's where they attach to the neurotransmitters. Okay? Certain areas of the brain control hunger, thirst, sexual libido. If you're hungry, you're uncomfortable, you eat, you get satisfied. Same process happens with the drug. You get a hunger for it, a craving for it. You get it, you're satisfied. It's self-reinforcing. Problem use. This is moderate in DSM.
This is stage
This is abuse. This is moderate.
Okay.
So I'm using more often.
DSM-5 moderate.
I'm getting intoxicated. It's more pleasurable. But afterwards, after the high, there is pain, depression, discomfort. I'm not managing it very well. I'm having work and school related. I'm changing my friends. Hard to have for some people, for most people. If you're really very active, it's hard to have non-using friends if you're using, typically. Family problems, physical illness, weight losses, financial complications, personality, emotional changes. When people start bringing their family members into treatment, it's because they've at least gotten here, because someone's noticed that things are not kind of okay. And I always make this statement, which does not closely adhere to addiction treatment, but there are people all over the world who smoke pot, who drink, who socially, recreationally engage in other kinds of drug use, that pay their bills, do not get on probation, that don't get tickets, that don't have defects or police involvement in their homes, and they function. DSM indicators say that it's not a problem until it becomes a problem. That's true for substance use, that's true for personality use.
Both DSMs.
Right. The indicator is when you fail to function across important life task areas. And when they begin to fail to function across those life tasks, they come into treatment because they've been arrested, because they're getting kicked out of school, because their wives and husbands are leaving them, because they are losing their job, because they run over to the crisis stabilization hospital, something happens, and they didn't function. Stage 2, abuse, which is moderate.
Well, 3.
No, on page 8, I'm sorry here, I'm going to 3. I'm just following the book line by line.
So this one is called what?
This is still stage 2, abuse moderate. It's just more of the same. They're using several times a week instead of several times a month. They're using during the day, they're using by themselves. And their reasons are changing. It's to manipulate their emotions, to experience pleasure, to cope with stress, to diminish pain, guilt, anxiety, sadness, inadequacy. They're experiencing depression when they're not using. And they're using to stay high or to maintain normal feelings. The feelings sought are pleasure and relief from negative feelings, boredom, anxiety, stress reduction. Sometimes they try to control their use unsuccessfully. And more of the same substance is needed to produce the same effect. So the changes in personality, the lying, the changes in friendships, the decrease in extracurricular activity, family conflict, all those things sometimes begin to manifest that bring them into treatment. Now we're in stage 3, dependency and addiction. Frequency of use now is not monthly or weekly, it's daily or continuously. And in DSM-5, this would be severe. Okay. And they also in DSM-5 talk about chronic for this. They use any means necessary to obtain a secure drugs or alcohol. They'll take serious risks. They'll engage in criminal behavior. They're not trying to get high anymore. They're trying to not feel pain and depression, escape the realities of daily living, and it's out of control. If you look at the assessment questions for substance addiction, have you used longer than you intended to, more substances than you intended to, despite increasingly severe negative consequences with unsuccessful efforts to stop or cut down? Those are still the indicators for addiction.
Is it still the addiction is the behavior and the dependency is the actual physical? Or is it
Yes,
not?
dependency is more into physical.
Okay.
Yeah, it's-
The addiction is the behavior, right? No. I know that's always confusing.
Not necessarily. I mean, the behavior is manifested.
Right.
But it's either severe psychological or physical. Typically, addiction is understood to have a physical component. Okay. So, in this dependency addiction stage 3, which is severe, it's when blackouts happen. They're not passing out. It's robotic, automaton behaviors. They're up on their feet doing things that they don't remember. They're changing emotions, depression, aggression, irritation, apathy. They get a bucket that they put things in that we will not identify on camera. Behavioral indicators, physical deterioration, weight loss, health problems. Think about clients that you have that fit this model. Memory loss, flashbacks, paranoia, volatile mood swings, dropping out, expelled from school, losing jobs, leaving home, overdosing, and not concerned at all about getting caught. Spending most of their time anticipating, acquiring, using, recovering from drug use. Alcohol and other drug addiction, substance dependence is marked by with DSM-4. It is marked by tolerance, the need for markedly increased amounts of the substance to achieve the intoxication, markedly diminished effect with continued use with the same amount, and withdrawal. So it's tolerance and withdrawal. If I'm using, I need more and more. If I don't use, I'm going to go into some kind of withdrawal. The substance is taken in larger amounts over a longer period than intended. Persistent desire, unsuccessful efforts to cut down or control use. A great deal of time spent in activities necessary to obtain or use the substance to recover from the effects. Losing, failing to take care of important social, occupational, recreational activities. Continued use despite persistent recurring physical or psychological problems, negative consequences. The difference with DSM-5 and DSM-4, DSM-5 draws the line between tolerance and withdrawal. So for example, if you have kidney surgery and they put you on a morphine pump for the pain, you're going to develop a tolerance for it. When they take it away, you're going to have a withdrawal for it. But that's situational, it's time specific. It's not across your, it's not across that.
So what's the difference between the DSM? What were you saying?
DSM-5 says that tolerance and withdrawal is not the only indicator for addiction. Physical, social, occupational, financial, legal, psychological consequences and a downward spiral. Treatment helps addicted individuals enter a stage of recovery during which they abstain from substance abuse and experience improved physical, social, psychological functioning. During that, it's a slam dunk that there's going to be relapse. Most programs have that built in. Looking at recovery. Addiction is not understood to be a curable disorder. That's on the test. It is a treatable disorder. And treatment works whether they are mandated or voluntary.
So you said it's treatable, not
curable.
Curable. Okay.
Page 12, 5 critical components of effective treatment. This is on the test. Assessment. Diagnostic instruments, processes to find out who you're dealing with. What are they addicted to? What stage are they in? Patient treatment matching.
That's 2. Thank you.
What do they need? Not everybody needs in-house. Not everybody needs inpatient for 12 months. Not everybody's going to fare well with coming to see you once a week. What are they facing and what do they need? 3, comprehensive services. They have complex issues, health problems. They have legal issues most of the time. They have psychological problems. How do you get them connected to the community to get the services they need? 4, relapse prevention. What are their triggers? What are their coping strategies? What do you need to do so they can live life without the drug? Because drugs kind of permeate people's living tasks and areas. And if it's something that's causing them to continue to get fired, kicked out of their home, and locked up, they've got to find a way to do their life without this. And the last one is accountability. And with that, you're thinking about reporting to probation, parole, your drug testing, keeping them honest. Yes. So a model treatment program would be assessment. And after you assess them, they would go in the same day. You would document your findings, get your treatment plan together. You'd get them some preventive primary medical care. Treat them for infectious diseases. Have weekly random drug testing.
And they'll give you, Kate, like those scenarios, right? And ask.
They will. Pharmacotherapeutic interventions, like some places won't allow psychiatrists to give them medication for depression. This is saying a model treatment would include that. You'd have medical and psychological and psychiatric help. You'd have individual and group counseling. You'd have substance abuse counseling, life skills counseling, general health education, peer support, teaching them how to have social interactions without use, relapse prevention, and outcome evaluation process. So now we're going to go back into several pages of the same statistics. Yay! Page 15. How many people 12 and older are illicit drug users?
Half.
21.8.
No.
Is that right now?
Mm-hmm.
Wait, really?
Yes.
Oh,
21.8 million.
I forgot that.
Okay. And then they tell you that it's rising. What is the most commonly used illicit drug?
Marijuana.
Marijuana.
Illicit.
Can we have a trivia game? Sorry.
We should
Never mind.
we should
Um,
we should play one.
We should. It's
Then they
trivia.
give you
Check
some
it.
things about cocaine, hallucinogens, methamphetamine. Then they come down here to marijuana. Kids 12 to 17 actually decreased in 2002, remained unchanged in 2008, and then took a dramatic uprise in 2009 forward. They talk a little bit about ecstasy, prescription drugs.
How do they describe the new things like bath salts and stuff?
That's not
It
dealt with at all. I don't think it's on the test. If it is, it's only going to be 1 or 2 questions. It's not going to be a make or break. It's definitely not in the book. Molly, some of the newer drugs are not even discussed.
Molly, you mean pure
That's just
pure ecstasy?
ecstasy,
Yeah, it's
MDMA.
just pure ecstasy. It's not cut with anything.
Yeah.
So, and then they have some little statistics that say who's more likely to be chronic dependent people, employed or unemployed? Unemployed. Whether they ever had a job or they lost because.
Or they're self-employed.
Educated or uneducated, which is kind of unfair because there are a lot of educated people who, but it's uneducated. Slightly more than half of Americans 12 or older, this is page 17, 51.9% are drinkers.
What was that age range?
12 and
Thank
older.
They always use 12.
They
for
always
some
say
reason.
12 and older.
Yeah.
12 and
2009, almost 24% participated in binge drinking. Binge drinking is defined as having 5 or more drinks on the same occasion at least one day in the 30 days prior to the survey.
Are they going to ask
5
me
drinks
details
a
about
day.
that?
A lot of people are going to fit that criteria. Good.
I've lost count.
Okay,
So that's,
on page 18.
we're filming.
This is fairly simple, okay? If you think about it. They're asking about ethnicity demographics, okay? Who is the highest ethnic group for alcohol use?
White devil.
African American.
No way.
Native American.
Native Americans.
Really?
If in doubt, pick the Indians. If in doubt,
Just guess.
the Indians are going to be the top of every list of social ill.
That's been theorized that they were not exposed to substances for so many generations that they had no there
Like
there
smallpox.
was no tolerance to alcohol or
That's
anything
kind
else.
of
They'd never been exposed to it.
Right. This is the
Awesome.
case. If you're looking at infant mortality,
Native American.
Megan,
I'm getting it
we
right.
have X number of minutes to do this. If you're looking at infant mortality, if you're looking at drug use, suicide, illiteracy, high school dropout, it doesn't matter. Any
When
social
in doubt,
ill, when
it's
in doubt,
probably-
pick the Indians. Okay? Speaking as a representative of that group,
She can say it because she
it's,
is one.
it is the reality.
Yes.
Okay? What is the lowest group?
For alcohol,
Pygmies. I don't even know now.
Asian, right?
Asians.
Oh, gotcha.
Asians.
This stuff's coming back.
Okay?
This stuff's
African Americans are 20.4. Where are the Caucasians? Okay. I'm just looking to make sure I don't leave out a statistic, you guys. Okay. Tobacco use, page 19. 69, almost 70 million people 12 and up.
Wow.
Okay.
70
Are
million.
there?
Do what? 12 and up.
Right.
For what?
estimated 3.1 million people 12 and older used a illicit drug for the first time in the past year. The largest number was marijuana use. And they talk about cigarette smoking among and smokeless tobacco among young kids. About 80% of kids say that they have been exposed to drug or alcohol prevention in school. Doesn't have a huge impact on actual use. 2009, 22.5 million people, about 10% of the population, fit diagnostic criteria according to DSM-4 or 5 for this use,
For what?
for alcohol and other drug use.
AOD.
Tells you again, marijuana. Tells you again, you first used alcohol at age 14 or younger. They tell you again, and the only reason I keep saying it is because of this over and over, count on it. Treatment need is defined as having a substance use disorder, receiving treatment at a specialty facility, hospital inpatient, drug, alcohol rehabilitation, and mental health centers within the past 12 months. Looking at age, rates of substance dependence or abuse are associated with age. Adults 18 to 25 is higher than kids. It's also higher among people that are 26 and older. So you have to kind of get old enough to do it, and then some people age out, and they get older, they decide, they get married, they get whatever, and a lot of them tend to curb it.
So it's higher 18 to 25, lower
Than
any other group. Okay.
It's like low, high, low.
Mm-hmm. Gender, males or females?
Males.
Males. Okay.
That's next.
It's race, ethnicity.
It's your Y chromosome.
Highest among Indians, lowest among Asians. About the same percentages for African American Caucasians. A little higher for Hispanics. 9% for whites, 8.8% for blacks. And here come the American Indians are 15.5%.
Earlier it was 20.4 African
But that's a slightly different statistic.
So
American.
Just know that it's going to be Indians, Asians. Doesn't really
So
matter.
they're
And then you said that
The other people in the middle.
Caucasian and African American are about the same, and then Hispanics is slightly higher than Caucasian African American.
Yes.
Okay.
It's correlated with lower education, correlated with unemployment, correlated with people that are in trouble with the police. If you're on parole and probation supervision, it's going to be higher. It's correlated with geographic. I missed this question on the test.
So it's a
Which one?
demographic, like where you live.
Geographic, yes.
Oh.
Highest where? In the West, California. Lowest where? In the South, the Bible Belt. I don't know how accurate that is with the Kentucky, Tennessee methamphetamine marijuana growers. I don't know. Hello?
Let me get your phone down.
Yes. Okay.
This is use
Respond-
or dependence. Being.
They're talking about use.
And they're saying
Yeah,
drugs.
this is all
across
just
the board.
use.
Right. Response to substance abuse. It's unacceptably high because there are a lot of societal issues around theft, criminality,
Availability.
accidents like DUIs and people getting killed, clogging the emergency room, different kinds of things. So treatment is two basic categories: pharmacological modalities. What do you do? And behavioral modalities. What kind of medicine or detoxification? Remember, detoxification is not treatment. Detoxification, and they will ask you that, is cleaning.
Detox happens before treatment.
Right, you clean them up so you're not treating the drug. And behavioral modification, how am I going to change what you're doing? Together, according to NIDA, the National Institute for Drug Awareness, I think, you have a better effect. So, The criminal view of addiction defines drug use as criminal behavior. That doesn't seem to be too earth-shattering. Chapter 2
Okay, well.
will be our next place to begin.